In 1996, Dr. Gregory Stanton, a genocide scholar and the founding president of Genocide Watch, presented a paper to the United States State Department that changed how the world understands mass atrocity. He had studied the Holocaust, the Armenian genocide, the Cambodian genocide, the Rwandan genocide, and dozens of other cases of systematic mass killing. And he found something terrifying. Every genocide in history follows the same pattern, the same stages, the same escalation, in the same order, every single time. Stanton identified 10 stages that precede and accompany genocide. They are not random. They are not spontaneous. They are predictable. And the most disturbing part of his research is this. At every stage, the process can be stopped. At every stage, there are warning signs that are visible to anyone who knows what to look for. And at every stage, the world has historically chosen to look away. This video applies Stanton's framework to the oldest hatred on earth, antisemitism. Because when you map the history of how Jews have been treated across 2,000 years against Stanton's stages, a pattern emerges that is so consistent, so repetitive, and so recognizable that it functions less like history and more like a manual. The same 7 stages have played out against the Jewish people in ancient Rome, in medieval Europe, in Tsarist Russia, in Nazi Germany, in the Arab world after 1948, and they are playing out again right now. If you find these stories fascinating, make sure you subscribe to Bloodlines and Borders. Stage 1. Stereotyping they are not like us. Every instance of antisemitism in history begins with the same foundation. The classification of Jews as fundamentally different from the surrounding population. Not different in the way that all individuals are different. Different in a way that is categorical, fixed, and inherently suspicious. In ancient Rome, it started with monotheism. The Romans worshipped many gods and expected their subjects to do the same. Jews refused. That refusal made them visible, distinct, and suspect. Roman writers like Cicero, Juvenal, and Tacitus described Jews as clannish, secretive, and hostile to outsiders. These were not observations based on evidence. They were stereotypes based on unfamiliarity, and they established a template that has been recycled in every century since. In medieval Europe, the stereotypes shifted to economics. Jews were depicted as greedy, cunning, and obsessed with money. Shakespeare's Shylock in The Merchant of Venice is the most famous literary expression of this trope, but it existed for centuries before Shakespeare wrote it. The irony, as we have covered in previous videos, is that Jews were pushed into moneylending precisely because Christians were forbidden from charging interest, and Jews were excluded from virtually every other occupation. The stereotype was created by the restriction, not the other way around. In the modern era, the stereotypes have evolved again. Jews control the banks, Jews control the media, Jews control the government. The specific claims change, but the underlying structure is always the same. Jews are categorically different, and their difference makes them dangerous. Stage 1 is always the same. Classification, separation, they are not like us, and it always begins long before anything violent happens. Stage 2. Scapegoating they are the reason for our problems. Once a group has been classified as different, the next stage is to blame them for whatever is going wrong. This is the stage where stereotypes become accusations. The Jews are not just different, they are responsible. For the plague, for the economic crisis, for the military defeat, for the moral decline, for whatever fear is consuming the society at that particular moment in history. During the Black Death of 1348, when a third of Europe's population died, Christians accused Jews of poisoning the wells. The accusation was absurd. Jews were dying from the plague at the same rate as everyone else. But absurdity has never been a barrier to scapegoating when a population is terrified and desperate for someone to blame. Thousands of Jews were massacred across Europe in response to a fabrication. After Germany's defeat in World War I, the stab-in-the-back myth blamed Jews for undermining the war effort from within. Over 100,000 German Jews had served in the war. 12,000 had died fighting for Germany. None of that mattered. The myth was more powerful than the facts because it gave a humiliated nation someone to blame. In the modern era, when economies collapse, when pandemics strike, when political systems fail, the same pattern activates. The 2008 financial crisis produced a surge in conspiracy theories about Jewish bankers. The COVID-19 pandemic produced conspiracy theories about Jewish involvement in creating or spreading the virus. The mechanism is ancient and automated. Something goes wrong. Blame the Jews. Stage 2 has been running on autopilot for 2,000 years. If you find these stories fascinating, make sure you subscribe to Bloodlines and Borders. Stage 3. Discrimination. They should not have the same rights. When stereotyping and scapegoating have done their work, the next stage is to formalize the exclusion through law. This is where hatred moves from the cultural to the institutional. Jews are no longer just disliked, they are legally disadvantaged. In the Roman Empire, after Constantine's conversion to Christianity, Jews were progressively stripped of civic rights. They could not hold authority over Christians, could not serve in the military, and could not build new synagogues. In medieval Europe, Jews were excluded from guilds, forbidden from owning land, barred from universities, and confined to specific occupations and neighborhoods. In the Ottoman Empire, Jews lived under the dhimmi system, which granted a degree of self-governance but imposed special taxes and legal inferiority. The most systematic expression of Stage 3 in modern history was the Nuremberg Laws of 1935. These laws stripped German Jews of their citizenship, prohibited marriage between Jews and non-Jews, and created a legal framework for the complete exclusion of Jews from German society. The Nuremberg Laws did not come out of nowhere. They came after years of Stage 1 stereotyping and Stage 2 scapegoating. By the time they were enacted, the German public had been primed to accept them. After 1948, similar legal discrimination was enacted across the Arab world. Laws restricted Jewish employment, froze Jewish assets, revoked Jewish citizenship, and created the legal framework for the mass expulsion of over 850,000 Jews from their homelands. The pattern is identical in every era. First you classify, then you blame, then you legislate. Stage 4. Dehumanization. They are not really human. This is the stage where hatred becomes dangerous. Stereotyping says they are different. Scapegoating says they are the problem. Discrimination says they should not have rights. Dehumanization says they are not human. And once a group has been classified as subhuman, everything that follows becomes psychologically possible. In medieval Europe, Jews were depicted in art and literature as agents of the devil. The blood libel, the fabricated accusation that Jews kidnapped and murdered Christian children to use their blood in religious rituals, was dehumanization in its purest form. It transformed Jews from a religious minority into monsters. The mistranslation that gave Moses horns in Michelangelo's statue was not an accident of art. It was the visual expression of a theological dehumanization that had been building for centuries. In Nazi Germany, dehumanization was industrialized. Propaganda films like The Eternal Jew depicted Jews as rats, infesting a clean society. Posters showed Jews as parasites, vermin, and disease carriers. Julius Streicher's newspaper, Der Stürmer, published cartoons of Jews with grotesque physical features, hooked noses, and clawed hands. Images designed to make the audience see Jews as something other than human. When you have spent years depicting a group as vermin, exterminating them feels less like murder and more like pest control. That is the function of dehumanization. It makes killing psychologically sustainable. Stage 5. Isolation. They must be separated from us. Once a group has been dehumanized, the next stage is physical separation. This serves two purposes. It makes the targeted group easier to control, and it removes them from the daily lives of the majority population, so that their eventual fate becomes invisible. The Jewish ghetto was invented in Venice in 1516. The word ghetto itself comes from the Venetian word for the foundry district where Jews were confined. Over the following centuries, ghettos became standard across Europe. Jews were locked behind walls, required to return by nightfall, and prohibited from living among the Christian population. In some places, Jews were required to wear identifying markers, yellow badges, pointed hats, or special clothing designed to make them instantly identifiable. The Pale of Settlement in the Russian Empire, established in 1791, confined Jews to a specific geographic zone and prohibited them from living in Russian cities. It was the largest ghetto in history, covering parts of modern-day Poland, Lithuania, Belarus, Ukraine, and Moldova. Over 5 million Jews lived within its borders. In Nazi Germany, the ghetto system was re-established with lethal intent. The Warsaw Ghetto confined over 400,000 Jews into an area of 3.4 square kilometers. The Lodz Ghetto held over 200,000. These ghettos were not just prisons, they were staging grounds for deportation to the death camps. Isolation is always the stage immediately before violence. Because violence is easier to carry out and easier to ignore when the victims have already been removed from sight. If you find these stories fascinating, make sure you subscribe to Bloodlines and Borders. Stage 6. Organized violence, they must be punished. Stage 6 is where hatred becomes murder. Not individual acts of violence, but organized, systematic attacks carried out with the knowledge or active participation of the authorities. The Crusade massacres of 1096 were Stage 6 events. Crusading mobs swept through the Rhineland cities of Speyer, Worms, and Mainz, slaughtering thousands of Jews before the armies even reached the Holy Land. The rhetoric of holy war against enemies of Christ was redirected from the distant Middle East to the Jewish neighborhoods next door. The pogroms that swept through the Russian Empire from the 1880s through the early 20th century were Stage 6 events. Government-sponsored or government-tolerated mobs attacked Jewish communities, destroying homes, businesses, and synagogues, killing thousands and displacing hundreds of thousands. Kristallnacht in November 1938 was Stage 6. Nazi paramilitaries attacked Jewish homes, businesses, and synagogues across Germany and Austria, killing at least 91 people, arresting 30,000 Jewish men, and destroying over 7,000 Jewish businesses. The name means Night of Broken Glass. The glass was from the windows of Jewish shops, shattered so thoroughly that the streets sparkled with it. The Farhud massacre in Baghdad in 1941 was Stage 6. Mobs attacked the Jewish quarter, killing between 150 and 180 Jews, injuring over 2,000, and looting 1,500 shops. In every case, Stage 6 follows the same trajectory. Stereotyping primed the culture. Scapegoating provided the justification. Discrimination created the legal framework. Dehumanization made the violence psychologically possible. Isolation made the victims accessible. And then the violence came. Stage 7. Extermination and denial. It never happened. The final stage has two parts, and the second is as important as the first. Extermination is the systematic killing of the targeted group. Denial is the effort to erase the evidence, rewrite the narrative, and ensure that the crime is never acknowledged. The Holocaust was the most extreme expression of Stage 7 in the history of anti-Semitism. 6 million Jews were murdered in a genocide that was planned, organized, and executed by the full machinery of a modern industrial state. It was carried out with railway schedules, architectural blueprints, bureaucratic classifications, and industrial-scale methods of killing. It was not a spontaneous eruption of violence. It was the logical endpoint of 6 preceding stages that had been building for decades, and for centuries before that. And then came the denial. Holocaust denial began almost immediately after the war ended. It has taken many forms over the decades: outright denial that the killing happened, minimization of the numbers, distortion of the methods, shifting of blame, and the claim that the Holocaust has been exaggerated for political purposes. Iran hosted an international conference on Holocaust denial in 2006. Anti-Semitic websites and social media accounts promote denial daily. And in the ADL's 2025 global survey, 1 in 5 people worldwide said they had never even heard of the Holocaust. Denial is not a postscript. It is the completion of the genocide. Kill the people, then kill the memory. Destroy the community, then destroy the evidence that the community ever existed. This is why the Jewish refugees expelled from Arab countries after 1948 have received no restitution, no acknowledgement, and no UN resolutions. Their exodus has been erased so thoroughly that most people in the world do not know it happened. That erasure is Stage 7. It is happening right now. If you find these stories fascinating, make sure you subscribe to Bloodlines and Borders. Where are we now? This is the part of the video that matters most. and the part that most channels would be afraid to include. Because if you understand the 7 stages, you can map where the world currently stands. And the answer is uncomfortable. Stage 1 is fully active. Anti-Semitic stereotypes about Jewish power, Jewish money, Jewish control, and Jewish conspiracy circulate freely on every social media platform on Earth. The ADL's 2025 survey found that 46% of the world's adult population holds significant anti-Semitic attitudes. Stage 2 is active. Jews are being blamed for the war in Gaza, for global economic inequality, for controlling governments, for manipulating media. The scapegoating mechanism is operating at a level not seen in decades. Stage 3 is emerging. In some countries, legislation targeting Jewish institutions, restricting kosher slaughter, banning circumcision, or prohibiting the display of Jewish symbols is being proposed or enacted. University campuses have become spaces where Jewish students report feeling unable to identify openly as Jewish without facing hostility. Stage 4 is visible. Dehumanizing rhetoric comparing Jews and Israelis to Nazis, to colonizers, to genocidaires has become normalized in political discourse, on campuses, and on social media. When you call a group of people Nazis, you are dehumanizing them. You are placing them in a category where normal moral protections no longer apply. Stages 5 through 7 are not currently active in Western democracies, but they do not need to be for the warning to be clear. Gregory Stanton's entire framework is built on a single insight. The stages are predictable but not inevitable. At every stage, the process can be stopped. But it can only be stopped by people who know what they are looking at. Now you know what you are looking at. The question is what you do with that knowledge. Because the pattern does not care whether you are paying attention. It keeps moving forward regardless. The only thing that stops it is people who recognize it early enough and refuse to let it continue. 7 stages. 2,000 years of evidence. The same pattern, in the same order, every single time. The only variable is whether anyone intervenes before it reaches the end. If you find these stories fascinating, make sure you subscribe to Bloodlines and Borders. Thank you for watching. If you want to go deeper, the next video on your screen is one you won't want to miss. I'll see you there.